The announcement for War Thunder's annual winter event has dropped. The event will be running from the 18th of December until January 11th, and the format is thankfully my preferred task style, with a set of tasks every 2 days for each vehicle class. So of course, if you do want to get all of the prize vehicles, you will essentially need to complete 3 sets of tasks every 2 days. Firstly though, we're going to start off with the prize vehicles, of course what everyone likely wants to hear about. Starting off with the air vehicles, we of course have 2 prizes alongside some decals and secondary camouflage options for those prize vehicles. The first prize vehicle is the RO-57, a Tier 2 premium aircraft for the Italians. This is a twin-engined fighter and attack aircraft, which was armed in real life with a pair of 12.7mm machine guns, with some versions also having an additional 20mm cannon. Although the preview image is rather interesting, I believe I can actually make out 4 guns, in addition to a pitot probe on the nose of the aircraft, so we will just have to wait and see what the vehicle will actually get when it's released. The RO-57 will be awarded for the completion of 5 aviation stars, and its secondary camo will be awarded for the completion of 6 aviation stars. The top prize for aviation is the Mig21 PFM. This is the first time we've seen a second generation Mig21 in War Thunder, with the Mig21 F-13 being Generation 1, and then the MF, SMT and BIS being Generation 3. PFM stands for Interceptor Uprated and Modernized. This version was designed of course for the Interceptor role. As with many other MiG-21 versions, it also had an uprated engine and improved avionics and radar systems over earlier versions. For the vehicle in War Thunder, however, there are not many details thus far, and knowing how aircraft can commonly miss payloads that they had in real life, I won't speculate as to what it could have at this point, aside from the KH-23 that is shown in the preview image, although on this aircraft it might be designated as the KH-66, although they are versions of the same missile. This is of course an air-to-ground missile that is also seen on the Yak-38. It is mouse-guided, and going by the placement, I would guess that 2 of these can be carried on the PFM. The Mig21 PFM is a Tier 6 vehicle for the Russians and is a standard event vehicle that can be received for 10 aviation stars completed, with the secondary camouflage for 11 aviation stars. So moving on to the ground vehicle prizes, we have a pair of armoured cars as well as some 3D decoration weapons. First prize is the e.b.r. 75. This is an 8-wheeled French armoured car, seemingly featuring the same FL-10 turret as the AMX-13 with a 75mm cannon, and I would assume that it also retains the auto-loading system. In real life, the vehicle had a top driving speed of 66 miles an hour or 105 kilometers per hour, and while many may think that this was a design with somewhat limited production, this isn't actually the case. It was produced between 1951 and 1960, with over 1,100 examples being produced, although of course with a few different variations, especially when it came to the turret and the gun. The e.b.r. 75 will be a Tier 3 premium for France and will be received for 5 Ground Forces stars completed, with its secondary camo for 6 Ground Forces stars completed. The top ground vehicle prize is the Class 3P, seemingly also known as the Henschel TH-800. Honestly, info on this vehicle was quite hard to come by, other than that it was a very limited production prototype. From the preview image, we can of course see that it is an 8-wheeled armoured car that is very similar aesthetically to the Roykert armoured car that is of course South African. Seems interesting, but the lack of information does make it hard to make a judgment at this time. This vehicle will be a Tier 6 for Germany and will be awarded for 10 Ground Forces stars, with 11 Ground Forces stars for its secondary camouflage. As for boats, the first prize is a version of the Japanese K-8. I'm definitely no expert when it comes to Japanese naval, but yeah, it's a version of the K-8, it's a Tier 2 premium in the Coastal Fleet line that will be awarded for 5 naval stars and then 6 naval stars for its secondary camouflage. The top prize is then quite a bit bigger than the K-8. This is the USS Baltimore. This was the lead ship for the Baltimore class heavy cruisers, which was a class of 14 vessels. The main caliber armament is made up of 3 turrets, each with 3 8-inch guns, but then it also seems to have a good amount of secondary guns, with a bunch of 5-inch cannons, 40mm and 20mm cannons. American cruisers is another part of naval that I'm not really that familiar with. However, going by the performance I've observed of many of their other cruisers, I would assume that this will perform quite well. The Baltimore will be a Tier 5 on the American Blue Water Fleet line as a standard event vehicle and will be gained for 10 naval stars completed and 11 naval stars for its secondary camouflage. So there are the prizes. Getting into how you actually get them, thankfully the progression here is quite simple, unlike some of the recent crafting events where you have a backstory and a bunch of stuff you have to do. To get them, you will need to gain stars. There is a fairly simple progression line and tasks for each of the 3 vehicle types, of course being air, ground, and naval. Basically, every 2 days you will need to complete 3 of the 5 tasks for your vehicle type, and then you will get a star for that vehicle type. So if you do 3 of the 5 aviation tasks, you will get an aviation star that will go towards those aviation prizes. You will need to do this 12 times for that vehicle type if you wish to get every single prize for that vehicle class, and of course you can do all 3 stars in that set of 2 days if you wish to get all of the prizes, if you have enough time to do that. You can of course buy stars that you missed for Golden Eagles. This will be possible, although I'm currently unsure of the price, but usually it is around about 1,000 Golden Eagles per star. Well, there's a relatively simple rundown of the event. Hopefully that was helpful or interesting. If so, please consider dropping a like on the video, and if you wish to see more news content or gameplay such as this, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.